B2B, B2C, B2B2C? You might say, Don, what does it all mean? Well, I'm going to demystify all of it in just a moment. Hey, it's Don Skaggs, again with Empowered Inventing TV, where we try to help you help other people by taking your great innovation, the right opportunity, mixing that with sound wisdom, so you can turn them into real things like products and businesses. Now, you might be wondering, you might have heard around business circles the terms like B2B or B2C, or you may have even heard the fancier B2B2C. And you may say, well, have you heard these before? Do you know what they mean? Or are you just saying, Don, what is it? What's all that? I don't understand all these TLAs, these three-letter acronyms. Well, you don't have to be confused by all the acronyms. It's really pretty simple. So think of B as business, B as business. Think of C as consumer. The two basically means two, means from, like from and to. Well, although they use, in print they usually use the number two, so it'll be the letter B, the number two, the letter C, the letter B, the number two, the letter B, and so on and so forth. So B2C is pretty straightforward. So B2C means business to customer, business to consumer sometimes. So you're selling as a business to consumers who are using the product. Now, in my opinion, this is a good way to get started with a lot of small lots, market test. If you're just getting started and you're going the entrepreneur route, the bootstrap route, the venture route, as some people like to call it, then you're legitimately seeding the mind for what I think could be other opportunities later. Maybe you do want to do a B2B model later. So you may find that you like the margins of business to consumer too, because you're selling directly to the customer. Margins can be a lot better sometimes if you don't have more layers you're going through. And there's good points and bad points to both of those models. B2B, as you probably already guessed, is business to business. You're selling to another business. But in the B2C, the business to consumer model, you might find you like those margins. And if you've got, the ear of that audience, the ear of those consumers directly, you could really find a nice opportunity. As I've often said before, the $5 million opportunities abound for this B2C approach, because you can find a market, and some big corporation that maybe you think you're competing with doesn't have the time or the energy or the patience. That's just a little $5 million market. We don't want to deal with that. That's chump change for us. Well, I don't know about you, but for you and me, it's usually not. $5 million opportunity is pretty good. So yeah, there could be a $5 million opportunity for you out there in a B2C scenario. Plus, like I said before, it might lead to other things later. You kind of capture the market, and then maybe a bigger player kind of looks and says, hey, look what you're doing over there. And they're an honest and reputable company, and they don't want to try to rip you off, and then you can do business with them. And maybe they'd be a distributor, maybe they would be a reseller, maybe they'd license, maybe they'd buy your business. You never know. Acquisition is always a great way to go. I've done it myself. So that's B2C. That's business to consumer. Now, you could do the B2B model too. That's always a really, really good thing. That's your business is selling products to another business or entity and not individuals. You're selling to a business. And I would I'd kind of include, institutions like governments, universities, hospitals. In my business, one of my businesses, we used to sell to hospitals a lot. We sold to government too, and some other institutions. University hospitals were always really nice big accounts. But you know, that's you're selling to another business, another entity, if it were. And the bigger, now there's one thing you have to realize in that approach, especially when you're just getting started, is the bigger the business that you're selling to, the bigger the entity, the more bureaucracy that you'll typically have to deal with. Plus your number of customers are lower. You know, if you're selling directly to consumers, you might have, you know, 1 million customers or 100,000 customers, or, you know, something like that. If you're selling to hospitals in the United States, you're limited to 5,000 customers, sorry to tell you. But those 5,000 customers can be pretty lucrative. You have to kind of weigh that when you're considering what are you going to do. So sometimes these bigger entities are harder to get. You know, get them to write this big nice PO for something. But once you get it, a lot of times it can be very, very well worth the effort, especially with government. Government sales can be very lucrative for that reason. And then there's this other one that we've heard a lot lately. That's the B2B2C. And you're selling to a business that sells to customers. So that could be distributors. It could be web platforms. And it could be kind of a step from B2C. Let's say you started out B2C, no distributor wanted to give you the time of day when you first got. I've seen inventors, entrepreneurs do this. They go around and they'd come up with a product, they'd launch a new product, they'd go out there, they'd start knocking on doors, they'd start talking to distributors. You could sell these to all your customers, it'd be great. And they were like, nah, you know, we don't know this strange thing over here. And hey, we had that too, and with a lot of my products. But I've seen this same exact thing happen over and over again to other inventors, where it's like the distributors will give you the time of day. And of course, I'm thinking of the Dan Atkinson. Dan, if you're out there, if you're watching, Dan was one of our great inventors as part of the Inventors Network, Kentucky, and he came up with this product called the Grass Buster. It cleaned out the underneath of lawnmowers. Simple tool, but it did something very, very cool. So he went around to distributors wouldn't give him the time of day. He did some small lots and took these small lots to this lawn and garden show. Begged me to go with him, help him with it. Don, I've never done a trade show before. I said, Dan, I've never done anything with lawn and garden, but I know trade shows. So I went with him, and I'm really glad I did, because now I can tell the story. So we go in there, and you know, you've got all these distributors and players in the marketplace that are in this show, and in this big lawn and garden show that he's at. And last day of the show, they open it up to the public. So you get consumers. So now all of a sudden it comes a little bit more of a B2C play. And I'll never forget the looks on these distributors that all snubbed him in the beginning. Yeah, we don't know what that is. All were kind of looking, and they wanted to know what the world was going on over there, because he had people 3 and 4 deep at his booth, all with money in their hands, buying his stuff. He had 2 small boxes. I think one had like 100 some, another one had 200 some. Before 10:30 in the morning, he'd cleared 1 box. By noon, he'd completely sold out. That got the interest of those distributors. So why am I telling this story? Well, because a B2B2C play sometimes is a great thing, but sometimes you got to seed that mind first a little bit. Sometimes you have to show, if you can prove the market first, that's all the better. I've seen it done, I've done it myself. So sometimes a good B2C run can give you that street cred that you need, that business cred you need for a good B2B2C play. So, but you have to be careful if you're doing both B2C and B2B2C, especially with distributors, because a lot of times they'll think, oh, well, is he going to undercut me and go direct? So you've got to have some good strategy with that, and of course we teach those things as well. So what route do you want to sell? B2C, B2B, B2B2C? Let me know in the comments. And if you're looking for the right marketing strategy, then you might want to consider one-on-one consulting, and you can find more about that at empoweredinventing.com. I'm Don Skaggs. This is Empowered Inventing TV. Like, subscribe, help us to build that tribe. I'll look to see you at the next meeting, workshop, online course, or on the next video.